Christophe, could you please tell us why circular economy is so important for UNIDO right now?
So it's very important because in a world with increasing population and particularly increasing middle classes, we are now at a number of 7 billion people on the planet, and 2 billion are middle classes, but it is expected that 3 more billion will become middle class by 2030, and it means that becoming middle class, they will for sure exert more pressure on the environment, on resources, and you can imagine the impact in terms of pollution, in terms of resources necessary to satisfy all those consumers who will in the future consume as Europeans or Americans. So I think it's very important to make sure that we can continue to have a quality life while not, I would say, depriving the environment. It has also another component, particularly in countries or regions which have not huge natural resources. If you take Europe or if you take China, for example, are regions of the world where you don't have all that immense reservoir of raw material. So it's very important not to waste, because what you can really make to recycle, reduce and reuse your raw material, you make sure that you will not have to import them, but you can, with the circular economy, the idea is to be able to reutilize indefinitely all the raw material instead of digging new holes somewhere on the planet, and instead of wasting so many resources as waste. The idea is to come up with a new ways of living and working with no waste. Maybe the term waste will be not being of use in the future, we hope.
It sounds like a very grand idea. Does it work only on the government level and only for large corporations?
I think it works for everybody. If we have examples in many companies that they can really use their waste, and with their waste they can really, for example, they can produce energy. We have some companies we work with in Africa. They use the agricultural waste, for example, husk or sisal wood, and they use this waste as a source of energy, and they become completely autonomous in terms of energy. But there are also many ways to also cut costs for company becoming more competitive, is through resource efficiency and cleaner production. We have examples in companies where they have a return on investment when they really don't waste their resources, utilize more efficiently their resources. It means that for each unit of resource you do more with less, and they can have a return on investment within 6 months or at the maximum 1.5 years in the examples we know. And this is really a new way of building the industry of the future, an industry which is more efficient, an industry which will be more cost effective, and also an industry which will create more jobs, because all these steps into building and establishing the circular economy will create new green jobs, and this is the future. It is estimated that in the next 5 years the EU, with the new circular economy package, could create 100,000 jobs, but maybe more indirectly in the new knowledge and the new technologies, the new, I would say, business model that we're building through the circular economy.
So what countries have already adopted most favorable legislation for circular economy?
So you have China, maybe was the first to adopt the circular economy a couple of years ago. Of course, they have huge challenges, both in terms of access to raw material, but also in terms of using more efficiently and in a cleaner way also their raw material and their production. But the EU has come up very strongly to support what we call a circular economy package, with the objective of avoiding all waste, at least the maximum of waste by 2030. And so it's 28 countries aligning behind this objective, and you have Japan, you have then the concept of circular economy is quite new, but already in the world you have many countries increasingly taking care of the environment, or encouraging resource efficiency or energy efficiency or cleaner production, and all these are, I would say, separate elements of the circular economy, but which contribute directly to it. If you have a good waste policy, it of course helps you recycle your waste and reusing it as a raw material.
What developing countries, regions or areas have already adopted circular economy principles and standards?
Yes, you have, if at least I take in Asia, you have China, for example. They have adopted the circular economy, and you have more and more companies and working on the circular economy. If I could just take an example, we've worked on what we call industrial symbiosis. Industrial symbiosis is a way to implement the circular economy with a group of enterprises, service providers, technology providers. And there was, for example, an industrial park. Industrial park is an economic zone where you have many companies working in parallel or together, and most of the time they forget that maybe the waste of one can become the raw material of the other. So we have there many possibilities, and in the one we worked in China was very interesting, because there were 800 SMEs, and those 800 SMEs identified at least close to 100 possibilities of working together. And with this they've worked, for example, to create from sludge organic fertilizers. They worked in using construction waste into new construction material. They worked in many ways to use the waste into raw material or a new product. So that was really amazing, and the results were astonishing, because in 4 years the total benefits were reducing the cost by $10 million, but also the gains that they got from working together was almost $15 million of benefits, and also many others benefits that you can imagine in terms of reduction of CO2 emissions, also avoiding wastewater, avoiding paper waste and others. So I think we could demonstrate with this industrial park that not only it's possible, but all companies will benefit. And we have identified that you have almost 15,000 industrial parks in the world, and we have the strategy that we want to convince countries and also other partners like the European Union and others, that if we would focus really on these 15,000 parks in the world, we will really have a huge impact on the environment and really introduce the circular economy as a business model.
Can you bring any examples of European SMEs working in partnership with companies in developing countries and regions on circular economy projects?
I think it's a bit too early maybe to say that some are working on circular economy as a holistic concept, but we have many examples of companies having knowledge in Europe, or knowledge and technology, and working in partnership with companies in developing countries. They are helping them to reduce their water waste, reduce their energy use, and starting the first steps into the circular economy. And as I said, you have now more and more consultancy companies specialized in circular economy. We work with some of them for example, in Tunisia, where we have developed with some companies the circular economy concept. So this is something that is happening now more and more, particularly because new regulatory framework in developing countries, but also because the companies in developing countries are not different as others. They become to reduce their costs. They need to become more autonomous and less dependent on importing raw material, and they also understand the benefit of doing more with less and at a cheaper cost.
What about countries with desert agriculture, with lands rather infertile? Do they work on circular economy concepts, and do they implement them at all?
I think those countries with not many resources, including agricultural resources, have to benefit like others, whether it's energy efficiency, resource efficiency. They even, I would say, those with scarce resources, they should do more to reduce also their consumption, to reutilize as much as they can what they already have, and also to recycle. So I think those with less resources have a more, I would say, interest, a higher interest in doing the circular economy than those who have abundant resources.
Can you bring any examples of agricultural circular economy projects in UNIDO?
Yes, of course. We have, for example, a project in Nigeria where we help the rice producers produce energy with the rice husk. You know, rice husk, if you go to Nigeria, you will see are mountains of waste, and it's at the end polluting because it has a fermentation, and then it can pollute even the aquifers. So it's very important to find a way also to use this waste, and you can use through biofertilizers, through biogasifiers, use this husk to produce energy. We also have a project in Tanzania where you have the sisal production. Sisal is a wood that you can use for construction and other uses, and 90% is waste. And so you can imagine the volumes of waste that you need to dispose. And using this waste as energy will help the whole industry to become totally autonomous in terms of energy. So not using fossil fuels, not importing oil, and also the surplus will be sold through the grid. So they become, beyond becoming sisal producers, they also become energy producers.